All right. I think we are good here. My zero zero starting screen live event here. Let's see, what do we got? Cargo run. I think we're running into bug mode, right? Gotta turn that volume off. New game. So this is all working. Life system works. Levels work. We need to do scoring today. And then game over. New game works. New game works. Can choose different ships. Propulsion works. All right. So I think this is looking pretty good, honestly. Hello. How are you? I'm in San Francisco, so it's quite a different time over here from Italy. Got my coffee this morning, waking up. Okay, so where are we? That's Bevy. Let's do Rust Adventure. Not this week in Bevy. What did I call this on? Asteroids. There we go. Oh, did I not change? Let's get dark mode going. I did light mode for a presentation. So I'm streaming for like 2 hours this morning. And then I'm going on the Leptos meetup in 4 hours or something like that. So I'm going to stream for about 2, take like an hour break. And then go talk about WASM and Leptos and this week in Bevy. So scoring in UFOs. Scoring's probably going to be pretty easy. I don't know how I want to handle UFOs. Wow, I didn't even spell destroy correctly in this issue. So you get points from destroying meteors, which means we probably want a way to collect those points. Let me just get the game running here for a second. Probably want a way to collect those points. We probably want a score display at the top. I do know that you get new lives, I don't know, like every 1,000 points or something. So we could do something like that at some point. But yeah, other than that, I think we do some arbitrary number whenever a meteor gets destroyed. Hey Caleb, hey Ribbon, how's it going? I actually don't know if the score for asteroids is every time a meteor splits or if it's only when you destroy the little ones. I assume it's for everything. I know you get points for the UFOs, but I'm also not sure exactly how the UFO points work. There's large and small UFOs. So let's just get started with being able to calculate points and display points. And we'll go from there. Content of the file is newer. I did something here. Just this transform, huh? All right, that's fine. Oh, because I cargo formatted, that's why. Okay. Going well enough? Good, 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 good. So, busy day for me today. Stream and then Leptos meetup later. Then I gotta make some calls. Okay, so how do we want to do scoring? We have events for meteors and we have events for like ship destroying and things like that. I think what we would do is create a new module. We're gonna need probably a struct with some game state in it, so probably just a score state. We may or may not want to keep the high score compared to, you know, the regular active score. We'll make it a plugin. And then when the events for the meteor destructions happen, we have the choice of either handling those again, which is probably what I'm going to do, or writing them in line in the system. So let's start off with scoring. How am I doing this score? I don't think I have a consistent. Everything has an S at the end. Scores maybe. I've accidentally added an S to everything. Uh, all of my modules. I don't know how that happened exactly. I didn't do that intentionally. So, similar to the way that we did like levels, right? We're going to need something like this. I don't think we need rand. We're not going to need primary window or anything like that. We may need that stuff, so I'm going to leave it there. This is not going to be a levels plugin. This will be a score plugin. We need to initialize the score resource, which we haven't made yet. We don't need to add any events. We're going to need to add systems. I think that this is going to be, I don't know, add to score. Or let's do score meteors. We don't need to chain this because there's only one of them. Game state playing is the right time to run that. This then needs to be scores, and it'll be a resource. And what do we do? Current. I don't think scores can go negative, so I think usize is fine. I'm not going to deref this because I think I'm going to have two fields in here. I'm going to have high as well. I don't know if we're going to use high today, but I think I'm going to leave it in here just so that we can kind of like do that calculation at some point. So function score meteors is going to take what, an event reader for, forget what I called this, meteor destroyed. This is one of the ones that I didn't add event to at the end. So we've got scores, it's a resource. We didn't implement default, which we do need to do. So this will initialize to 0, 0. This reader will pull in meteor destroyed events. Let's just count them all as the same for now. So for meteor in reader.read, reader.reader, reader.read. Or actually, we don't need to do that if I'm going to do the full thing. So reader.read dot length. And we'll say it's 100 points each. So then we need the resource. So scores, it's going to be a res mute. Scores, we're going to use scores.score or scores.current plus equals whatever this is. Both of these need to be mutable. And we might have just already implemented scoring. Oh, okay. So we need to add the score plugin to our list of plugins that is ever growing. It is not imported, so we need to bring that into scope. Something is wrong there. Let's find out what that is. Yeah, the Leptos Meteors will be cool. It's pretty small. I think the community is generally fairly small compared to, say, like a large JavaScript meetup or something. But I've got this site called This Week in Bevy, since we're working with Bevy. That kind of showcases a bunch of stuff and is a Leptos site, so I'm going to go talk about that. And if people enjoy it, they enjoy it. Scores. Did I mess something up here? Add system, score meteors, run if, in state. Did I remove a paren maybe? No. Oh, did I get too many of them? I think that's what just happened, actually. How many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think 15 is the number. So let's do a little bit of reorganization here. Too many plugins for the trait, exactly, yes. Which is fine, because I believe we can just nest them. Let's see, settings is us, controls is us, assets is us, UI is us. I want to kind of like keep these slightly organized in terms of like my stuff versus third-party stuff. Yada, yada, yada. So this red in my editor right now, I think is still Argus messing with stuff. I think I'm going to need to uninstall Argus. But you can see that whenever we hit that, we can just kind of like infinitely nest these tuples and we don't have a problem. We can also turn this into a plugin set if we wanted to. So this could be like our plugin set. And then we could have like external plugins, and then we could have the default plugins. The default plugins is also a plugin set. As you can see, like we're modifying the window, the render, and the image plugin here. So not even really a big deal. But this is kind of like one of those, it's one of those things that you come across in Rust APIs where we don't have, oh God, I'm going to forget the name of the feature. But basically you implement things for a specific number of tuples. So this is a manual implementation of this for up to 15 plugins. And then it's also implemented like sort of recursively, if that makes sense. So you can only list 15 in a row, but you can nest them infinitely. Thoughts on the Log Games Bevy post? I don't think they were leaving Bevy necessarily so much as leaving Rust, but yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. What will the size of the distribution of package with Bevy in megabytes? I don't know. Let's find out. I haven't done any optimization on this. It is worth noting. I don't know if I've built a release version of this recently either. Yes, I have, so we'll be pretty good. So that's the release build. Let's do ls target release, and let's find out how big it is. So this, with zero optimization, a bunch of third-party libraries, and all of the default features on, zero work into making this small whatsoever. Everything enabled, like all features enabled. 64 megabytes, it looks like. And just to note, there is nothing in the cargo toml for like optimizing for size or for speed or for anything at all, really. The only thing I have in here is for the dev profile. I'm doing some optimizations on packages that are not mine. So for like Bevy itself or something like that, I optimize them a little bit more highly so that they run better in development, but I don't optimize my own code. That's what this is doing. So yeah, I don't know how that compares to like Unity or something, but this is just kind of what it is currently. Let's do a little bit more score and then we can talk about that blog post. Okay, so this is running, yada yada. Let's do, I guess, an info here, just to log it out and confirm that we are, in fact, I don't have a debug on this either. Debug. So we need a derived debug to be able to print stuff out, which actually I think hilariously is one of the things that was in that blog post, if I remember correctly. They were kind of upset that reflection isn't like native and you have to do like a debug implementation. So when a meteor gets destroyed, 100, 200, well, that is not, was that right? I didn't even pay attention to how many we were firing. So if there's 2 of these left, right, then we had the big one. We had, what, 2 smaller ones and then 4 smaller ones. So we should end up with 700, and I think we're 100 over. So what that says to me is that it was colliding with 2 of them at the same time or something like that. So let's do something a little bit different here. And for meteor in read, let's debug the meteor, because I think we can debug the meteor. I don't know that I implemented debug on meteor destroyed, but that'll be easy. Yeah, okay, so the blog post, right? One thing that I would say is that I think that the way that we'll say the Bevy like ecosystem, the Bevy maintainers, the Bevy population, like people in the Bevy Discord, because like I don't really care about what Hacker News says or anything like that. But the people who will say matter in this conversation, in the sense of the people who would be most apt to receive any feedback from the post, are receptive to the things that need to change, and are behaving empathetically, right? Like that post contains a lot of pain, right? It's a very painful post. They are very much like, you can tell that it was hard for them for whatever reason. And they are very much like, when I do research for like videos to make or something like that, that's the kind of pain that I like look for. Like people just kind of being like, this was tough, this sucked, this was whatever. And like, it isn't necessarily exactly what they're saying that is the issue, right? Let's do debug on this. It isn't necessarily exactly what they're saying that's the issue, but it's the fact that there's pain there for them, which means that there is something that you can dig out of it that is useful to act on. And I think that the people who can act on things have done that. So what was I doing? Scores, meteor. We're doing .length right now, but now we could do something inside of this loop instead. There's no reason to optimize this. So let's do plus equals 100. And then we debug. Nice hat. Hey, Ryan, how's it going? Okay, so we're at 100. 300. Let's see if I can... I can't get it to trigger right now. That's 700. I guess I shouldn't be running this every time. Let's run it after... whenever we destroy something, let's run the scores. So that's 600 still. Ooh, made it to a live stream. Hey, Dax, how's it going? So, let's see. How do we get this to trigger again? Because I'm not even sure that the issue exists anymore, which is probably something we should have done. I think it was the way that the meteors spawned for... So what are we at now? 2,000, and we've destroyed 3 meteors minus 1 small one. So that's the right score. I unfortunately didn't implement logging before this happened, so I didn't see actually what happened. Good, just suffering from skill issues with NixOS and Rust. Yeah, NixOS is a great idea in theory. I think there are plenty of people who are pretty happy with it, but because I do so much stuff in videos and on stream and stuff, I don't want to use an alternative operating system. Okay, I'm gonna check the event docs just for a second, because we did see a little bit of weird behavior. We were using read, so we should have been clearing. So I don't think it happened over the course of 2 frames. We could clear anyway. What do I use for an operating system? This is a Mac, and then the other system that I use is a Windows PC. So the Windows PC I use for testing things out for workshops, for videos, stuff like that. I don't really use it as my main development platform. The Mac is my main development platform. And then every once in a while, I'll have a Linux distribution around to test things on. But I don't really use Linux as my primary development environment either. And it depends what I'm doing too. What is it? Shader. I can't remember what the name of this software is. RenderDoc. So RenderDoc does run on multiple platforms, but I believe is best run on Windows, is kind of the idea. So you could use like Metal to debug shaders in, what's it called? Xcode on Mac OS. But if you're on Windows, you're probably using RenderDoc. So it depends on what kind of project I'm working on too. Am I streaming directly from Mac? No, this is going through my Windows PC at the moment. So I've got 2 capture cards on my Windows PC actually. I've got one of the cam links that is just like a 4 input that's doing the camera. And then I've got one pass through. So this monitor is going from the Mac through the computer to the monitor. Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything that we've misinterpreted about the events. I'm actually at this point even gaslighting myself into believing that maybe we didn't ever even have an issue and I was doing my math wrong. No, we definitely did at some point. I unfortunately was running too many logs to see the history here. Because I think at this point we still had one more to destroy. So we did have an issue. What was the logic I was using before? Let's copy this out and go back a little bit. Because I think reader read.length times 100. So 0 times 100 should have been 0. 1 is 100, 2 is 200. Is length... No, length should be good. Yes, built originally on DirectX API. Yeah, RenderDoc, which is closed source. Vulkan has come a long way to be the default. Yes, definitely. So this is what we had before. So let me put that back in. Let's do... I don't want to do info once. I want to do it... I guess we could only run this system when the events come in too. That's probably the better thing to do. The other thing is it might be a issue with how they spawned, if that makes sense. Oh, there it was. Right? Because we had 2 more to destroy, and this is 1300. So we can trigger it in this form. I don't know how to write a test for that, which is hilariously something else that was in the that blog post. Everything seems fine when we iterate over everything. 1800. Is 1800 right for... Yeah, that's right. So 21. See if we can get one of these. 28. This is one of those things where, like, it wouldn't really matter to the gameplay. It's just something that I personally am interested in doing a little bit more digging into. Because, like, yeah, you want the scoring to be perfectly accurate and whatever, right? But does it really matter for a small game like this? And everything when we do the loop seems right. $35, that's correct. So everything's right when we do the loop. I can't re-trigger it when we're doing the loop. So it's possible length would come from the other thing we could do is read by ID or read with ID. But length would come from the iterator implementation. So it would be event iterator. So unless there was a weird thing happening in the length, last, nth, length, self.iter.length, that does do the normal thing, as far as I'm aware. So maybe I'll commit this and do some debugging on it off stream. GA dot commented out code. Sometimes double counts meteors for score, specifically when meteors are overlapping and they're destroyed. Okay, so I'll keep that and we'll move on. I don't think it's a problem with the actual code, having just looked at the implementation, which is really, really nice, honestly. The ability to just go to the docs and look at the implementation, dive all the way from your library into the standard lib is really, really, really nice. Okay, so we've got meteors coming in. We're counting scores. We can also get event IDs here, which is interesting. So we could warn if we were double processing too. But we need to display the score somehow. So what are we going to do for the UI? Currently for the UI, we have the main menu. We have the choose ship menu. And we have the lives UI, right? I think the lives UI is separate. So this is render lives, right? But we're doing the spawning and whatnot there. So we have spawn life UI and remove life UI with this node bundle, life container. So let's do something like this. Not meteors, scores. And we'll just do the score completely separately from the other UI. And this is going to be, I guess we don't really need a container here, but I do want to center it. So spawn score UI. So this is going to happen when we start playing, right? It'll get removed when we stop playing. So this will be score container. Mute commands. Score UI is query for entities with score container. Oh, this is also one of the really interesting things that came out of that blog post. Cart made a post about being able to arbitrarily grab components. And you can query for entity mute. So if you do want to be able to just grab components that are on an entity, you can do a query for entity mute, and then you can do query.get with the type of component that you're trying to get on the entity, and then you'll get that. There are some ways to make that a little bit easier, and there are also ways to use these queries as databases. So you could do a query for, you know, a node or whatever. But it's just an interesting thing to point out because it is something that comes up occasionally. Score UI elements, maybe? Query? I don't know. I don't have a personal convention for naming these queries. I know that some people do this. They generically name query so that if they ever have to refactor this, they don't have to change the names. Query entity score container. Oh, with score container. That's the issue. With score container. So for entity in query, and we need to iterate over this without mutability. We're going to do commands.entity entity dot despawn recursive. So we can spawn in our UI when we start playing. We can remove life, or not the life UI, the score UI when we stop playing. And then I don't know that that's exactly what we want to do, but that's fine. So we get this node bundle. I think we can just drop in everything we want on this container. So let's do what? Commands.spawn. And this will be a text bundle. I think that's the right. Actually, is text bundle the right thing to do here? Text bundle, fields, node, style, text. And then text, I think we can do from sections, right? From section, yes. So it'll be something like this. Right here. And then I don't think any of this is something we need. Transform, no, no. Background color, no. So we'll default all of this stuff, which is nice. Style, maybe we want that, so we'll keep it around. Text from section. Let's finish this function call. There's a default font that we're using, so we'll use that. Text style, we'll need the default if we're going to use the default. Font size 60, color white is fine. Let's call this score display. Wrap this in a tuple and do score display. So we haven't set up the systems and when they should run yet. We do that in lives. So let's just copy what we did in lives with the new systems. We aren't rendering anything yet, so, or rather, we are rendering stuff because we're spawning it in, but we aren't updating the display yet. This is spawn score UI, and this is remove score UI. Scores? Did I call it scores? I did call it scores. Let's call it scores. Scores Sazy. Oh, man. It's kind of cool how little time it takes me to add features to this. It's like about an hour for any feature I want to add to this little Asteroids game. So we spend like 2 hours here. I add 2 features every stream. Okay, so this is going to be hello world. Score display, text. So this should show up, I think, at this point, unless I messed something up, which is totally possible. As a programmer, that is the number one thing that I do, mess everything up. Okay, so we've got the UI there. You can see that it's kind of adjusting the lives display there. So I think we should be able to pull it out of the flow. Assuming I did that on the right element. Don't like that those are colliding right now. Style, padding, column gap. We probably don't really need padding or column gap. What else do we have here? Bottom direction display. Margins, heights, overflows, tops. And then life UI, we didn't do absolute on either, right? Top is in here, right? Yeah, okay. Val Pixels, Val Kilmer. Val Pixels 0. And then for Scores UI, same thing. And if this doesn't work, then I need to update my understanding of how it works. Okay, it does work. It's funny because like Bevy UI is like kind of like CSS, but not exactly like CSS. So you can absolutely position things, but sometimes things interact. So I guess in that way, it is exactly like CSS, to be perfectly honest. Also, Taffy got updated in the 0.14 release. So Taffy's at 0.4 now, which is the layout library that Bevy uses. Okay, so we want to center this as well, or at least center the contents. I am not going to remember this. You ever look at something and just blank? I don't think this is full width at the moment. So we need to do width, val, percent. And then I actually don't know offhand whether the text is going to fill that entire gap or not. Looks like no, or it looks like yes, actually. So let's do text bundle, background color, what do we call this? Red? This is just debugging. There is no other purpose to the colors that I'm putting in right now. So this is red, and let's make this wrong spot. Background color, green. I keep wanting to use the new palette functionality, but the palette functionality hasn't been shipped yet. It's shipping in 0.14, which is one of the downsides of doing This Week in Bevy for me, because I'm like, oh, there's this cool new thing that I want to use, but I can't use yet because it's not released. Okay, so this is green, that's red. Green is the node bundle. I thought justify was the right thing here. The default display is Flexbox. So unless I messed up my ups and my downs, which is not what I did. Also, I have so many windows open that my window manager is a little bit starting to struggle, as you can see with this terminal. I'm a person with like 20 to 30 desktops open at all times. You can't see that here because I keep this one clean for streaming. But over here, I can't even see what's on each desktop. They're so small. So we've got green. Green is filling the background. Oh, because I absoluted it, isn't it? No. Text color red. I don't have to put it on the text bundle, do I? I don't think so. Because this would be inside of the text container. So that would be surprising to me if that were the case. Sometimes you just fumble a little bit. That's not the right thing to do there. What did I do wrong here? Expected rect. Okay, that's fine. I always forget what order those numbers are in, so we could force it like this. We don't need to force it. I don't like doing the margin here. I don't want to do the margin there. So why is this not working? I've just done something super silly is all it is. So with 100, justify content center. Top 0 with 100%. Column gap and doesn't need to be here because we don't have anything to put next to each other. Justify should be that primary axis. I guess we can keep justifying a line here just in case there's something weird happening. But that's basically for everything. Did I use the wrong justify? I thought it was content. I don't think that's the issue. I think I just made some silly mistake that I am not looking at right now. Position type absolute. I don't need to reapply the display after doing that, right? That would be really strange in my head because the default is flex. Oh, you know what I'm not doing? Oh, I know what I did. Okay. This is going to be really silly. It's actually reasonably embarrassing. So what I didn't do is I didn't parent the text into the, thing here. So it's actually not a child of this component. So we can do that with add child. Oh, I was going nutso. I was like, this is supposed to work. Yeah, okay, so now it works. All right. You know what should have keyed me off? The fact that the green bar wasn't tall enough. Okay, so we can get rid of our debugging here now. Green, red. This says hello world, but it's only going to be the score. So we need to get score display. And this will be FN updates render score query for score display. I think we want a mutable text with a score display. And for text in query, which is going to have to be mute. Then we can do text dot sections 0. If you are feeling spicy, you can do dot get mute 0 dot expect whatever, or you can do something that I kind of like doing a little bit more. What's the return value on get mute? Is it a come on? All right, because I broke the syntax highlighting beforehand. Okay, there we go. Get mute is an option, so we'll do get mute 0, right? This will be mute, and we'll do let section equals this. But because it's an option, we'll destructure here. Let sum section equals this. And then we will, because this is an issue, like a hard issue, right? What you're going to do, error, probably error once, because I don't want to spam the console. Score display text section doesn't have a 0th section. Else. So let else syntax, error once. This needs to return here because we're basically saying that there's a hard problem. I guess we could continue here too. I think that's also fine. So we've got section. And I think we only need to... Oh, we don't have the score actual. So let's do scores, res, scores.current.toString. And I've done something wrong, but that's fine. It'll tell me what I did. What window manager Vim layout do I use? Awesome content. Thank you for doing this. Yeah, sure. So I use Yabai on Mac OS. I do not use Vim. This is VS Code, and this is iTerm 2. I don't have anything against Vim, but why am I... This is a text section. A text section should be able to just take this value, right? I don't think there's another field. Let's go look at the docs quickly. Oh, dot value? Is that what I need to do? I feel like that changed. Okay, so render score. This renders the score for any score display that we put on the screen now. So you'll see me a lot doing loops inside of Bevy stuff when we know there's only one here, right? We are only displaying the score in one place at one time in one location in the game. But we could do it in multiple places. And really all this system is doing is updating that score display. So like if there's a score, then make sure it updates when the score changes. And that's true for every score display, right? Like it should just update if it has this component on it. So we shouldn't need to order those at all. We should run this. And if I've done everything correctly, the game should run. And we have 0 there now. 100, 200, 300. I like that it uses dotted zeros by default. I think it's Fira Sands, if I remember correctly. It's kind of cool. The score just keeps going up. You know, every frame, the score jumps a little bit. So like if you destroy a lot of meteors in a frame, it'll jump by 300 or something like that. So let's make sure that this works again. We didn't reset the score, so we need to do that. I think we're doing that monolithically at the current time. Yeah, we're doing that monolithically. So let's grab the scores as resmute scores. This is not public yet, so we won't get autocomplete, and we didn't import it. Scores. Current. So let's do if scores.high is less than scores.current. That's a weird way to write that if. I feel like if scores current is greater than high score, makes a lot more sense, like reading it wise. So scores.high equals scores.current, and then scores.high or current equals 0. So we're updating the high score, even though we aren't really, you know, like using it yet. Do we have debugs here that I can get rid of? Where's this coming from? This is meteor destroyed in scores 43. Let's get rid of this, because we can see the score on screen now. Scores itself needs to be pub. We'll make all of this pub. So we don't actually need to make this pub unless we're accessing it from outside of this module. But since we have this monolithic reset that happens whenever we start a new game, which we don't need to have. We could have like a stage here or something, or a schedule. I'm just like choosing to go with something that is simple and works over something that is, quote, correct or whatever. So now we've got our thing. And we crash, and if I can drive into this, it'll crash a couple more times. And then we hit new game, choose a ship, we get 0, we get more. And that is scoring. So not too bad. Little hiccup on reading the events for whatever reason. But otherwise, 100 lines of code to keep score. Is that right? Yeah. My my Rust format settings make it much more vertical than it needs to be. So this is probably just under 100 lines of code if you have like a normal Rust format. But I keep everything very vertical and very much more thin so that it fits in blog posts and videos and things like that. Okay, so scoring technically works. Is there anything else we need for the score? I guess it would be nice if it showed up when you like... Ooh, that was a very close. I guess it would be nice if it showed up like here. But kind of my thought now is that this main menu doesn't really fit. So there was a really interesting... I've been playing a lot of Hades. Let's hope that this image search doesn't get me banned. Open image in new tab. There we go. So the Hades main menu looks kind of like this. I've been staring at it a lot lately. It is not the only game that takes this approach where there is just a list of stuff on the left-hand side where it's like play, options, quit. I think I like that setup a little bit more than the setup we currently have. So we have this currently, and it, if I'm being honest, it doesn't look very good. It doesn't look professional. It doesn't look like something I would want to release. It's not like designed. It just kind of uses a couple sprites and stuff. It is a menu, which is nice, but I think that the left-hand side, like text looks a lot nicer. I don't think we would need to change anything horrendously to get that to happen. The only thing here is that we have this like extra menu here where you can turn the audio on and off that I haven't touched since I wrote it the first time. But we should be able to just swap that out. So maybe I'll do that again at some point. Git commit m scoring works. Very, very, very deep commit messages today. My brain is in 3 places, so. Okay, so we don't have UFOs yet, but scoring done on stream today. Close with comment. So scores work. Going back over what we did, we have the resource. So we have got the scores resource, which is storing the current and the high score. We don't display the high score anywhere right now, but we could. So we initialize that resource, which initializes it to 0, 0, so it doesn't save across games. We have this 2 systems, one for scoring meteors and one for rendering the score. Then we have the scores UI spawning in and getting removed whenever we enter the playing state. So spawning in here spawns everything, right? We spawn in a text bundle, which we get the entity ID of. It has a score display component so we can query it for later. And then we do a node bundle and we add the text bundle as a child, or the text bundle entity as a child, which makes our flex work, which I can probably now actually get rid of justify items. I was really wondering why that wasn't working. Let me make sure that I didn't just break it, but it was like I've worked with CSS for so long that my mental model shouldn't be this broken. Okay, so we're good. So yeah, we've got a node bundle with the text bundle inside of it. Text bundle has sections. We query for the text with that score display component on it alongside the scores resource. We loop over anything that could be displaying the text or the score and get the section from it and update that section to be the current score. And then if for some reason this doesn't have a text section at 0, which would be kind of weird, then we log out an error. And then for the actual scoring, we have a completely isolated system. So one thing that's really interesting is that we didn't need to modify any of the other files to do scoring. Because we have these things that are being kind of event driven, the events carry the information we need to actually score them. And if we wanted to, what we could do here actually is match on the meteors. Why is Rust Analyzer not liking this right now? Oh, meteor type, that's why. We'll match on the type of the meteor, fill the match arms. So now we have big, medium, and small, right? And this is let score to add. And we'll make what big ones can be 20, medium ones will be 60, and small ones will be 100. I guess score to add isn't really what I want here. Meteor score. And we could stick that like on the meteor type if we wanted to for like how much a meteor should be worth. But it's just as good here. So now we have a game that uses these events. These things are completely decoupled. We didn't need to touch any of the meteor code. And all we had to do was correctly play the game. And now we have different scores for different values or different types of meteors. And it's a little bit more interesting than just scoring 100 every time. Which is very cool. I don't know that that's the score we want, but shrug. I don't think it really matters either. Git commit score value per meteor. So that's scoring. Do we have time for UFOs? We have about an hour. How would we do UFOs? I think the thing that I would start with is spawning UFOs randomly on a fixed time set, maybe? I don't know if there's UFO spawning mechanics for asteroids. Yada, yada, yada. Legions of YouTube videos, which I can't watch on stream. Asteroid spikes, UFO, meteors, whatever, whatever, whatever. Maybe this. Nope. I wish there was a website that just had like game Wikipedia. I wish there was a site that just had like lists of rules for classic games. That would be really cool. It doesn't even mention UFOs. Wow. Saucer. They call them saucers in here. Okay. Yada, yada, yada. Saucers shoot back. I guess the score in asteroids is like right above the life counter. So we could do that too. We could put these right next to each other. Saucers. Periodically. I don't think there's any information about. I think you can have multiple saucers that show up per level. So it would be kind of probably on maybe a fixed time step. We would do a fixed time step system that then randomly decided whether to spawn a UFO or not. That UFO, if there was one in the world, wouldn't spawn another one, even if it was, the system was running. Then the UFO would need to target and shoot our ship, which we have the logic for laser movement. We need to pick a sprite for the UFO. And then probably we start off with movement that doesn't do anything. We need a laser UFO collision system, which we already have. And then what else? Particles on the UFO collision or destruction. So we could start working on that. We'll see how far we get in the next hour. We need what then? A new module, as always. New module, new plugin. PubMod UFO. This will be maybe a little bit more far-reaching. I don't know. We'll find out. When we spawn in the ship, which we do in lib, because we haven't done a custom command for the ship yet, we get engine fire and commands. We don't want the engine fire. We're just going to spawn something in like this. So UFO will have this in a system. I'm just going to call it spawn UFO for a second, just so it doesn't get lost. We do need this plugin structure that we just keep using over and over. I should really have this in a like autocomplete kind of thing. We don't need any resources as far as I know, because we can just query for the UFOs. Periodically spawn UFO. That's going to be our thing that runs in game state playing. I guess that's what we'll call this. We're going to need rand, right? Oh, we need game state there. We're going to need rand RNG, because we're going to kind of randomly spawn UFOs. This needs to be able to spawn stuff. So let's go back to lib and grab some of these. A bunch of these need to be kind of like imported. So we'll grab that, grab that. We don't need the ship choice. We don't need to choose ship reader. We don't need the window. We just need these things. This is not going to be a ship bundle. I don't know that we need this to be a UFO bundle yet. So we are just going to get rid of it and make this an ad hoc set of stuff. So texture atlas is something we're going to need. Player we don't need. Ship type we don't need. Collider we're going to need. Wrapping movement we will also need. And I messed up my brackets, braces, something. What did I do wrong here? Cargo run. Expected identifier, ship type collider. Oh, because this isn't an object anymore. That makes sense. So the collider we're going to need to go grab from ship, and we'll just do whatever. So this collider is fine for the moment. We probably don't want it to be a capsule. It's probably going to be more like a circle, but it doesn't matter at the moment. So we get the collider, we get the wrapping movement, so it moves. I don't actually know if they wrap. I don't know if UFOs wrap in asteroids, like around the screen. I think once they leave, right? Ship menu location. We're just going to do a transform. Actually, we spawn the meteors in random window locations, right? So let's do this. Destroyed at. That's doing some randomization on the position of the meteors when they spawn in, which is just at the original location. So let's look for, we do that in lib for the first time. Yes, we do. So that is this and these gen ranges. So we'll pull that logic in and we'll say, yada, yada, yada. I guess we are always going to spawn, what, on the left side of the screen? So let's always spawn, I don't know, negative 500. I don't know how far is the right amount of far. And then we'll do this. Get rid of this. This transform will be from XYZ, which is going to be this stuff. Z is going to be 1. The height is something we don't have. I did just get rid of that from the window. So let's grab this stuff and make sure we still have it. We've got 3 things to do. So 1 goes here, 1 goes here, and 1 goes here. I do love multi-cursor editing. Multi-cursor editing is amazing. Primary window. Window resolution over 2. That's fine. We aren't using the width right now. That's okay. We do need an index. So space sheet, right? Let's look for a UFO. Green, blue, red, and yellow. Let's make it, I don't know, a red UFO. So 260 is the index. And then we're going to have a system called UFO movement that will query in a mutable fashion for the transform component of a UFO. We haven't created that component yet. So for UFO in query, we'll say move right, but I want to take this movement logic from, I think lib has the laser movement. No, lib has laser collision. I put the laser movement in some really awkward place. I didn't put it in its own file. I put it in like a file it shouldn't exist in. Is it easy to get JSON from Bevy to make a GUI with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS? I would go with no. I'm not sure what you mean by get JSON from Bevy to make a GUI with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Like you can embed Bevy in a website and then do like UI related stuff with HTML and whatnot because it's just canvas. And you could do like interaction between that, but there's nothing inside of Bevy itself that will let you build with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript like you are like used to on the web. Laser movement is in controls. Controls is such the wrong place for that. I need to migrate that at some point. So this is laser movement. Transform and laser. I think we're going to hard code this. So this is what we need. And really what I'm doing here by copying and pasting this code is making sure that this like movement code is modulated by the delta seconds so that it's not just zooming off screen, but that it is moving in appropriate distance. So laser facing direction is going to be vec3 x, I think. So we're going to be moving right. This is not going to be laser facing direction. This is going to be UFO. There's going to be no facing, so we'll modify this as we go. I think we want this to move significantly slower. We don't really have a pre-existing movement factor. How do I spell that? I believe this is a vec. Yeah, let's do a vec 2 new. X will be, I don't know, we'll call it 100, and Y will be 0 because we don't want it to move on Y. UFO needs to be a component, so let's make a component. So derive component on struct UFO. And then this works here. We do need to put that UFO component on the UFO so that we can get access to that transform in this query. This is not a reference, so we don't need to dereference it. And then the transform is going to be mute transform in this query. And this will run whenever we're playing, so it can just go here. The periodically spawn UFO is just going to keep running and running and running and running and running. So we either need to make it like a very, very, very small chance that the UFO spawns, or run the system at a fixed interval. One thing we can do for that is, if I don't mistype, go to the Bevy examples, the ECS, I want to say, fixed time step. And this is going to be our fixed time step here. I think it works to just do this because we want this to run here, and we don't need anything else to happen on this fixed update. From seconds, let's make it 5 seconds. I don't know that that's right, but if you embed a Bevy game into a website, how would you save the game state for each authenticated user? Authenticated user makes me think that you should store it on the server. So you would have to make an API call, just like you would do anything else. There is, I think it's Bevy defer. So if you have a thing that you like to use to make requests, you can bridge it between whatever you have and Bevy by using this async runtime kind of thing that's happening in here. So that's Bevy defer. And you can have that happen whenever you want to. If you're running in Wasm, you do also have access to like session storage and stuff, or local storage or whatever, but that is not like a Bevy thing, that's a Wasm thing. So you can go as far as doing like raw stuff with WebSys. You have access to everything you could ever want via browser APIs, so you could do session storage and whatnot. I don't think there's anything built into Bevy to do like saving to session storage or whatever. I don't know that that would even make sense. There might be a plugin out there that somebody wrote. But for authenticated users, I would be sending that information to the server. Fixed update. We don't need to step this, right? It's not a timer, so we're good. And then periodically spawn UFO. We need to decide if we're going to spawn. So we can do something like this. That's really silly. So if rng.gen is greater than 0.8 or is less than 0.8, return did not spawn UFO. And then this needs to be typed because it can't infer from just like a less than what kind of number that should be. So we're generating a number between 0 and 1 as a float. I'm testing to see if it's less than 0.8. So 1/5 of the time we should be able to spawn a UFO. That is way too much from like thinking about it. The other thing that we need to do is a query for UFOs. So if query.is empty, right? And this is not query is empty. So if query isn't empty, right? Is that right? If the query is empty, we can spawn. So if the query is not empty, or this randomness, then we can't spawn UFO. Otherwise, this should spawn one 20% of the time every 5 seconds. And then the movement should make it move to the right. And we haven't added this to our set of plugins. So let's throw another plugin in here. Oh, I deemed that score plugin. Oh, that's not the right thing to do. UFO plugin. And then UFO plugin will be this. We're in UFO, right? UFO plugin. Main UFO plugin, bring this in. And if I've written everything right, then we should have a UFO spawn 20% of the time once every 5 seconds. UFO did not spawn right off the bat. I should definitely update this to make sure it spawns at all. Oh, there we go. There's a UFO. A UFO that is absolutely rocketing across the screen. So UFO, let's make this much, much, much slower. And let's do, what is this? UFO facing direction times what? Time dot elapsed seconds dot sign maybe? Actually, let's get rid of that and let's do times sign for Y. And hopefully this moves significantly slower. We've already got 2 attempts to spawn, 3 attempts to spawn, 4 attempts to spawn. I should make this significantly easier to spawn for the moment. So it is still running extremely quickly. Let's make this really small. You're stuck with enums. How are you stuck with enums? Like, what's going on? Enums are really a fantastic feature of Rust once you get the understanding of them. So this is our UFO slowly moving across the screen. I do like it moving slowly. Delta Y. Let's do like times 200 maybe. That may be actually the wrong thing to do now that I just thought about it. I don't want to delta y is 0, so we do need to make it something here if we're going to do like movement. Yeah, that is exactly the issue. So there's our UFO. And it should wrap. Yep. Okay, and now we have kind of like a UFO moving in kind of like a sine wave across the screen. The collider is wrong, as we can absolutely definitely see. So let's change the collider to what, a circle, and we'll make it like 60. I don't know if that's the radius or not. But yeah, what's going on with enums? If you can type it into chat, then I will be able to say something about it. Very likely, anyway. Enums are absolutely fantastic, though. So there's our game. It's still a little too big on the collider. I want the collider inside of the sprite. So let's do 45, maybe. I actually, you know what we should do? We shouldn't be doing it randomly. We have this information. What is the space sheet here? UFO red. Width and height is 91. So 91 over 2 should... Actually, that's the number we came up with. So this is a UFO, right? And we are using the sprite sheet asset to insert that. We have the space sheet. We should be able to do let UFO dimensions equals space sheet dot, what is it, textures dot iter dot find. I forget what we have here. I forget what I like inserted. Find texture. This is not actually a texture. It is a subtexture, which is a struct that we created. So maybe I'll name this subtexture instead. Subtexture. So subtexture dot name equals what is it? UFO red, right? Let's check the space sheet. Make sure that we're getting, yeah, UFO red. Let's make it a different UFO, just for the ability to make sure that we are doing the right thing here. So if the name is equal to UFO blue, then we should get a subtexture out of it. And we expect space sheet should have a valid UFO texture. So now we get the subtexture for sure. And then what we can do with that subtexture is we can take the UFO dimensions dot, I guess width and height are both defined here, so we can use either one of them. And we're going to divide it by 2 for the radius of this circle. And it's going to be as F32. And then when we spawn this, we should get not a crash, but a blue UFO with the right collider on it. Unless I did something wrong and it can't actually find, should have a valid UFO texture. Let's do a little debug on this. So Rust Analyzer is really nice. If I do .debug and I hit enter, it'll wrap it for me. This should be a reference, I believe, though. There we go. There's a UFO in the game now. What does it do? It doesn't do anything yet. It floats across the screen. It will shoot at the player. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to shoot at the player. Interesting. Oh, it's .png. Okay, the names have .png in them. That's my bad. That's my mistake. I should have removed .png from the end, but UFO blue.png is really what we have here. Is programming easier with Rust in backend, web development, or game development? Programming Rust easier. I think it's easier, like whichever one you have domain expertise in, probably, is which one is easier. This is the second channel says game dev is always harder no matter the language. Yeah, it's interesting because game dev has a lot of the same issues as web dev in the sense of like you need to support a whole bunch of platforms. But web dev, we consider having like 4 browsers and a number of different computers and screens and whatever to be like, or it used to be a harder thing to deal with. But for game dev, what you have is somebody like inserted their GPU into their motherboard incorrectly, and thus Windows is crashing. Or like they don't have a D drive for some reason, and you looked for something on a D drive, and all your developers had D drives. And thus, like somebody that bought your game on Steam is just unable to play the game. So I guess in that sense, I think shipping it to users, you probably have to support a wider range of devices. If you're not shipping for a console, for sure. I think consoles are a little bit more regular, a little bit more like web browsers. It's nice in the web to have evergreen browsers these days. But for backend, I mean, like simple backend stuff, Rust is great. Like it's dare I say easy. I wouldn't say easy just because like saying easy always like puts somebody off. But I'm going to talk about a site that I built with Leptos later today at the Leptos meetup. So this week in Bevy, that's this site. There's a bunch of, you know, like content on here and whatnot. Let's see if I can find the right thing here. So database is connected. So this is the site. It has a bunch of stuff in it. Kind of keeps people up to date in the Bevy ecosystem. Kind of a way to give back a little bit. This is the localhost version. It's got a whole admin panel that I didn't do dark mode on, so don't hate me for the way this looks. Maybe I do appearance and I show you. So I usually work with it like this. So a whole bunch of stuff, you know, content management in the back end, whole bunch of, you know, different things that I need to insert and update and, you know, keep up to date, and GitHub issues that I need to give date ranges to associate with different issues and stuff like that. And I find this site very pleasurable to work with, is what I'll say. I am talking about that in about, what is it, two or 3 hours at the Leptos meetup, noon BST. So a little bit more then. Abductions, yes. We don't have anybody to abduct. We could do, what are one of the, there's some game with abductions, right? What is it, like the game where you have to shoot up to destroy meteors that are coming down to the Earth? I forget what that one's called. Alan would know. Totally a joke, but you could label the UFO Bob, so it's an IFO. I don't get the joke, unfortunately. IFO. Yeah, I don't know. I think the one you have domain experience in is the easier one between web dev and game dev. personally. Although I've shipped a lot more websites and backend code than I have games. Need some cows. Always needs cows. You've got UFOs, you need cows. Identified flying object. Bob the UFO. With web dev, I don't have to do trigonometry and matrix multiplication and stuff. Yeah, I mean, again, if you're into math and you like math, or you like, the things that game developers do, which is kind of like real world math is the way that I would term it, then yeah. Must go. Thanks. Have a good week. Hey, thanks for showing up. You've been here the whole stream, so I appreciate that. Have you seen the recent article on Rust game dev? Yeah, I gave my thoughts earlier if you want to go back in the stream. Basically, I'm happy with the way that people who have the ability to change things are taking it. There's a lot of pain in that article, a lot of like frustration. I don't necessarily agree on all of the technical aspects or all of like the arguments they make and whatnot, but there's definitely a lot of pain in that article, and I think it's worth paying attention to the fact that somebody is having that much pain. And I think that the people who are working on Bevy are paying attention to that and going, hey, these people had issues. There are things that we can fix. But again, Bevy is pre 1.0. Bevy is 0.13 right now. 0.14 is going to come out. I don't know when 1.0 is going to come out, but Bevy will have an editor before 1.0 is my understanding. Things like that. So I'm not concerned about that article in the sense that I think it spells doom and gloom for, Rust game dev and whatnot. I think that Bevy is very promising. There's a lot of people saying that a lot of the Rust or game dev is hype driven. I don't necessarily agree with that. I really like working with Bevy. I really like building things with Bevy. It makes sense to me. And I don't know, I stream it once a week now, right? So yeah, I run into things, but the idea that I could write the score plugin today in 100 lines of code without touching anything else in my entire application was pretty cool. And I don't really feel like that's hype. So I'm happy people are paying attention to somebody who is having pain. I'm happy that Bevy is already making progress on a whole bunch of different things. And yeah, that's the article I'm talking about, second channel. Bevy is making immense amounts of progress and making ECS easier to use and things like that. I think that when I think about Bevy, I think about Bevy over the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think about Bevy today. Because, and everybody will tell you this, if you were going to ship a console game today, Bevy is the wrong choice. That's Bevy doesn't ship to consoles today. Bevy can do mobile. There are people shipping mobile. Unless you have experience working on mobile platforms, maybe not the easiest choice to use, Godot might be an easier choice if you're shipping to, consoles or Unity or something like that, even with the licensing. So yeah, I mean, they're pay attention to the fact that Bevy is not 1.0 is what I would say. If you are a person who just wants to learn Rust and wants to make games, Bevy is 100% amazing. No complaints. If you are a person who wants to ship games, I think that Bevy works for some games and it doesn't work for others. And that will only expand over time. I really like the way that I can, if I have an issue, right? I can just go to the Bevy docs. I can go, oh, I had an issue with how text section was implemented. Here's the source code. When I call new, it does this, It's so nice. I think Brackies just did a video on open source. Let's see. Brackies most recent video is the future of game development. And in that video, they basically say the future of game development is open source. And they go with Godot, which is totally makes sense. And I think that that's true. And I think that having open source, like, I think Godot is on GitHub, right? I don't actually know. But being able to just like click in here and be like, oh, I had a problem with, you know, the editor. There was an issue with the icons. Here's a bunch of icons. Oh, you know what? I used animation autofit instead of animation whatever. Silly example, but like the code is just here. I don't even use Godot. I can just dive in and look at it. It's amazing. Same thing with Bevy, right? Like you can just go to the Bevy repo. Here's the Bevy examples, right? I go in here, I go, okay, well, I had an issue with some feature of Bevy. Maybe it was a dev tool. This is fairly new, you know, it's a new crate, doesn't have that much in it. Maybe I had an issue with the FPS overlay. This is literally the FPS overlay plugin. It's 120 lines of code. I can just go read it. If I wanted a different FPS overlay, I could copy this code and use it. And I think that's really the interesting part of Bevy for me. Like, all of this code, not only is it just sitting here, but if I wanted it to do something different, I can just copy this file, pull it into my project, and use it. Where can you ship Bevy games today? On the web, on mobile, on desktop platforms, Linux, Windows, Mac OS. The issue with game consoles is that they are all hidden by NDAs. So like if you were going to ship a Switch game, you have to be approved by Nintendo, and then you have to sign their NDA, and then you have to sign whatever, and then you can't tell anybody about it. There's all sorts of restrictions. So that is the issue for open source in general. It's an issue for Godot, and it's an issue for Bevy. Usually what happens, from my knowledge, is that there's a company who specializes in porting, you know, some game platform to a console. So like if you built a Godot game, there are now consultancies that will take your Godot game and ship it to, you know, Switch for you, or make the changes you need to ship it to Switch. But yeah, I mean, also there's people who build their own engines and ship on these platforms. So, is there anything we should do with the UFO here? It does need to shoot at the player every once in a while. It does need to only spawn in game state playing. This is scores. This is the wrong file. It does need to spawn only in game state playing. So we'll run if in game state playing on our periodic spawn. The UFO also, if there is one on screen, needs to get destroyed when we reset. So we'll go into lib and we'll add a little bit to our reset. So we don't need mutable. We need entity with UFO components. For UFO in UFO query commands.entity UFO.despawn recursive, and they should go away. UFO query. So we do need to bring this in. I didn't make it public. Actually, this reset system is the reason a lot of these things are that need to be public. Query entity with UFO. I'm also querying entities with meteor type. So maybe I do or we do with UFO Is that the right number of brackets? 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah. And then this doesn't need to be meteors. This needs to be just entities. And then, are we not despawning meteors? No, there it is. Okay, for entities in entities despawn, because it's the same thing. I've never actually needed ore before. I think that is that a tuple? Is that what it? So basically, that will query, ideally for anything with a meteor type or with a UFO, and it'll give us the entity. So when we do this, we have a meteor here. We have a UFO that should spawn in a second. You chose Bevy over 3JS and Babylon. Yeah, I can see that. So now if we end the game, then we should hit new game. And yeah, there we go. We can't hit the UFO, unfortunately, with the ship. One, two, three. Okay, now everything's, well, the UFO stopped. And then we hit new game, pick our ship, and it spawns in a new one, which is cool. Or actually, that might be the old one, now that I think about it. But yeah, so we have a UFO. We can start new games. I want it to rotate a little bit. Maybe I won't do that today. It's not shooting at the player yet. I think we do need to do that. And then we need to do collision on the UFO as well. So shooting at the player, we could do the same way. We could have another fixed time step. We could also just have a timer. We don't need a fixed time step necessarily. But I think that's going to be it for today, because I do need to take a short break before I do the Leptos meetup. So the Leptos meetup is in 2 hours. If you want to hear a little bit about this week in Bevy, otherwise, we'll be back next week. I think that this game is pretty much over. Maybe one session to wrap it up. But we need to choose a new game. So if you want to help choose a new game, I guess join the Discord. I don't think I have the invite just sitting here. Let me grab an invite. Copy. Here's the Discord if anybody wants to join. I don't know what game we're going to do next. We could do a custom game. We could do another like older game, like 80s arcade game or something, etc. So, yeah. Have a good one, y'all. I'll see you later. Loving the Betty content. Any plans for an update video on Leptos' current state? Yes, I am going to do a Leptos video when 0.7 drops, which is going to be, I don't know, sometime over the next couple months. I don't know when 0.7 is going to drop specifically, but 0.7 has a bunch of reactive updates in it that I would like to cover. 0.6 is great, but I think I'm going to make that video for 0.7. So thanks for coming, everybody, and I will catch you in the next one.